Hi, so I'm Dr. Diana Koester. I am a research curator at the Cleveland Metroparks Zoo.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so this is an episode that I am so excited to bring y'all. It's got all kinds of stuff. We're talking tree kangaroos. We are talking with a person who has become a good friend of mine and somebody who I really respect. You'll get to hear a little bit of a story kind of from my own personal life and how this person has impacted some of the things that I do in the zoo world. And you'll get to hear just so much cool stuff about what goes into this person's work. And I'm obviously talking about Diana, who introduced herself at the beginning of this. And she's at Cleveland Metroparks Zoo, and she's part of the Safe Tree Kangaroo program and the Tree Kangaroo SSP. And we're both big tree kangaroo nerds, and we're buds. And I love this episode. I love her energy. I love who Diana is. I'm sure you've gotten this from the Tree Kangaroo Workshop episode and other things I've said, but the people I've met in the tree kangaroo side of the zoo world truly blow me away, and Diana is one of my favorite of all of them. So, I'm excited to share this interview with you. Obviously not trying to give away too much here, but, before we get to it, I do have to point out that you can be like me and like Diana and get your Rossifari limited edition Kangaroos in Trees, Why Are They in Trees t-shirt or hoodie on Bonfire. I've got the campaign listed in my stories and all over the place, really. You can find the link. The art is by my wife, Zoe, and it also contributes to tree kangaroo conservation. So please support that campaign. And Diana is actually the first person, I think, who ordered one other than, Zoe Miles and I. So yeah, pretty excited about that. And otherwise, you can support the podcast by doing things like becoming a patron for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. Or if you don't want to spend money, tell people about it. Share things, share the stories and the posts that I make on the socials, and, like and review and rate and do all the things that you can on the podcast app. I don't ask for that one a lot, but honestly, if you are a listener and you haven't at least given a 5-star rating, that is something that is so easy to do, whether you're on Apple, on Spotify. Most apps have something like that. And Apple and some other ones do have the ability to write a written review. And it only takes a couple seconds, and it really makes a huge difference in how the algorithm in those apps show people who are searching for things like zoo podcasts, show them kind of in order and stuff. So that really does help. Oh, and one final note about this interview before we get into it. So this is a funny one. We had a couple of different places that we could have sat and done the interview, but one of them was actually in the building where the tree kangaroo as well as koala habitats are at Cleveland Metroparks Zoo. And Diana pointed out to me that there was a waterfall there that is quite loud. But as we were talking to the tree kangaroo keeper and hanging out, it became apparent that it would be good, just because of some stuff going on there right now that they were trying to observe, to have our eyes on the tree roos, and we could help with a little bit of a project if we stayed in the room. And plus that meant I would get to see lots of Joey and Mama Tree Kangaroo. So yes, the choice was made to stay in that room, despite the fact that the sound suffered, and it did. You're going to hear that there is a waterfall in the background this entire time, but I cleaned it up and it sounds a lot better than I expected, honestly. So, yeah, sorry about that, but any opportunity I get to help out with some observations of animals, I'm going to take, and any opportunity I get to sit and interview someone while staring at tree kangaroos, I'm going to take. So, yeah, that one's for me, y'all. All right, enough chatter. Let's get to this. Enjoy the interview.
I'm also a staff animal welfare scientist here. So right now we are sitting in the tree kangaroo and koala building at the Cleveland Metroparks Zoo, staring at some of my favorite animals in the whole entire world, our female tree kangaroo Modi and her baby Renbo.
Yes, I'm so excited to see Renbo. This is so great. Also Modi. I never see Modi because, you know, it's always the big boy that's out here hanging out and doing the thing. So, yeah.
Which he deserves love too.
He does. He's amazing. Yeah. So, welcome. We have to start off by telling our story, which is that we met at AZA 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And you were doing a poster presentation on tree kangaroos.
Yep.
And I love tree kangaroos. And so I saw your poster while you were there and ran up and we just started talking. And so fast and so passionately that Zoe very quickly slunk away. And you know, one of the things I found out is that you're involved with the SAFE. And I mentioned that I wanted to be involved in the SAFE, and you plugged me in with everybody. So you're actually the reason that I'm like involved with the SAFE program now, which is very cool.
Yeah, that's honestly incredible. I'm really glad that this is sort of the way that worked out, because I knew the second. So I'm sure you remember this, but when you came up to talk to me, your the frames of your glasses were red pandas.
Yes.
And so I knew, I was like, oh, okay. So I knew the sort of kindred spirit that I was talking to. And I think you might have had a tree kangaroo shirt on, but I'm not 100%.
Probably either that or red panda. Or yeah.
And yeah, I was really excited that because the study that was on the poster that I was talking about was on the gut microbiome. And so I didn't have a lot of, people stopping by to talk to me. Not, I think, the most riveting topic for most people, but you stopped to talk to me and weren't even like necessarily like a gut microbiome fanatic. So I knew, I was like, oh, okay, this guy must love tree kangaroos. Let's talk about tree kangaroos. And then, yeah, just like the amount of passion and stuff, I was like, I gotta give you an outlet for that. And I'm really happy that you followed up with that and that it's worked out this way. That gives me so many warm fuzzies. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, no. And it's been the theme of my life lately and of the podcast kind of lately, that I've come to realize how much like one interaction or one conversation can impact not only people, but animals. And it's just amazing. And like, yeah, I knew that there was a SAFE tree kangaroo existed. And I think I had reached out somewhere randomly to some random person on some socials and nothing worked out. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'm doing the red panda thing and that's cool. And then within 5 minutes of talking to you and seeing your passion, same thing. It's actually funny. I was texting with Zoe today, right before we started this interview. And I was like, Diana's a kindred spirit. And now you said the same thing.
Aww.
And it's really funny. And it's like, you make that one connection and it can change everything. And who knows what impact I will have on the SAFE program. And that's true of who got you involved in all the things, it's just amazing to think about.
Yeah. And not to give you a peek behind the curtain a little bit, but I knew when you told me you had a podcast and, like you had a bunch of listeners that love zoos, I was like, we have to get this guy attached to the SAFE program. And tree kangaroos are incredible. And I think in a lot of cases, people just don't know about them. And this is the way to sort of combat that. And what we really need to do, I think, and I have been a long time believer of this, is that we need to find somebody who's plugged into like Pixar or DreamWorks, because nobody knew what red pandas were either until Kung Fu Panda, right? And so we need to get tree kangaroos on that boat. I don't know how to make that happen, but
I think what we need to do, so I've actually had a lot of thought about this because I've had the same thought, honestly. And I think you're putting the cart before the horse on that one.
Oh.
I think red pandas started to take off in popularity on social media. Like when you would look at the numbers, even on my own numbers, my red panda posts would get more attention than anything else after a while. Not at first, but after a while. And then I think they got popular enough that big companies started to notice.
Okay.
And I've had a few viral things happen with tree kangaroos now. And I've noticed even just like in my world, like more of my followers that like a lot of people will list their like favorite animals in their bios or whatever. And I've seen tree kangaroos start to creep in as I've done more promoting of the species. And so I'm trying to figure out how to take that information and reach out to people at some different, I'm not going to say where, but I already have one company I'm going to reach out to. I've already got it locked in.
Oh, man.
I have the contact.
I should have known.
Yeah.
You've already figured this out and you're already on it.
But that's the move. It just because they're amazing animals, you know? And to this day, I'll say like Turning Red, the Pixar film, was not well received.
I forgot to mention that one. Yeah.
But it was not well received. It was not considered like a highlight Pixar film or anything. But even so, to this day, if you stand outside a red panda habitat for more than 5 minutes, somebody is going to say, oh my God, it's Maylin or whatever I think that was it. But yeah. And it's just like, oh, okay, yeah. So it makes a cultural impact.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'm sure you're probably right, but I also now feel so much better to know that like, not only do you agree with me about that, but you're already like taking steps to address
taking
it.
steps. Yes. And so let's, I'm so curious to hear about your career because you are technically, if I remember correctly, a reproductive endocrinologist.
Yeah.
Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And that's not really what you're famous for in the tree kangaroo world. That's part of it.
Which is funny.
But you constantly have to remind us that you're not a nutritionist.
Right.
But everything that you do in the conversations and at the workshop and everything, like 90% of it at least, circled around nutrition.
Yeah.
So can you talk about how you got both your actual title, if you will, and then also how you fell into the reproductive side of things?
Yeah, definitely. So I got into reproductive endocrinology. So actually in undergrad, I knew I wanted to work with, so I originally started out pursuing, when I was in undergrad, I wanted to become a veterinarian, right? I started undergrad with that in mind. And I remember being told in my very first class, my first quarter at Ohio State was, I remember the professor said, and I don't even remember what the course was, but he said, okay, if you want to be a veterinarian, have a backup plan, you know? And I was like, that's very interesting because I never thought about doing anything other than that. And so I started considering that. And I wanted to like try different options. And so I ended up at that point, sort of applying or reaching out to a bunch of different like research labs and people that worked at the university with different roles with animals, right? Because I knew that I wanted it to involve like conservation and you know, in some way, but I wasn't quite sure what. So, and I ended up getting a call back from Dr. John Harder, who had a lab with the Brazilian short-tailed opossum. I don't know if you know what those are.
No.
But they are a very cute little marsupial. They're actually a pouchless marsupial.
Oh, interesting.
So they attach all of their young attach on like horseshoe-shaped teats on their belly. And he was doing reproductive research on them, mostly endocrine-based in a lab there. And so I ended up volunteering in his lab and then later having a paying position in his lab. And that's really my first exposure to doing research was in reproductive endocrinology. And at that moment on, I loved the reproductive aspect of it. I felt like that was really interesting. And like endocrinology was just sort of a background I had. And then I pursued that for my graduate degree and I sort of stayed in that. But to answer the second part of your question about why is it that the tree kangaroo SSP always talks to me about nutrition? Like, why am I the nutrition face? Well, I think that's because, first of all, for animals in zoos, reproduction and nutrition are really closely tied together. And I didn't quite even realize how much so until I started working with tree kangaroos. But it's true for lots and lots of species. What they're eating and like basically maintaining them at healthy weights and like just in good health, animals at zoos, it comes back to diet. And an animal's not going to reproduce if they're not like healthy and they're not at a healthy weight. They don't feel like moving around. Like they're just not going to be set up to breed well. And so we can really support species sustainability in zoos by like through diet. It's a huge way. And not even just to say through their health, but also like it encourages them behaving, foraging, eating naturally. And the way that they would normally do, we can facilitate that by feeding them better. And diet's a huge part of animal welfare in zoos. And working with the tree kangaroo population really helped me understand that. And so when I first started working with the reproductive side of tree kangaroos, I was seeing a lot of sort of issues in the population with successful breeding. And it came back to is sort of the individuals that were having the hardest time also were individuals I found that were overweight. And so there was a really, low-hanging fruit tie in there. So I started talking to the SSP nutritionist, Dr. Ellen Darenfeld, and she was nice enough to basically immediately bring me in on everything she was working on with tree kangaroos and like explain everything to me. And we started like working together to because she was in the process at that point of already coming out with improved diet recommendations. And then it turns out that she's an extremely busy person and she's not just a nutritionist for the tree kangaroo SSP. And so
that's so weird.
I know, it's crazy. It's not her full-time job. But she wasn't able to come to the workshop in which we were going to share the recommendations. So she trusted me to share that information like on her behalf. And then the questions that people ask me, I don't know. Like you saw, like I don't know all of the answers. I'm not a nutritionist. So I reach out to nutritionists, and I also have the luxury of working here with a macronutrient ecologist, Dr. Noah Dunham, who also helps me out a lot with the interpretation of, he's been intimately involved in we did a lot of energy expenditure work with tree kangaroos, and all of that was his brainchild. He's the only reason that I was able to even like participate in that work and getting it done. And he did that. Ellen and he and I collaborated on that to get that information out, because we were saying, well, if we're overfeeding tree kangaroos, how much should we be feeding them? And that study really helped answer that question. So really, it's been an accident, but I wouldn't say that I hate it. I love being able to share information with this SSP that helps them take better care of tree kangaroos, and everybody like wants it and asks me for it. And like everyone wants to do the best thing possible. And it's an awesome environment. So I love that I can play that role. I sort of selfishly love being the face for nutrition, even though I am not a nutritionist, and I try to remind people of that all the time, but
it's really fascinating the way that you look at the nutrition too. And I'm sure that this is common from the perspective of a nutritionist or whatever. You're a scientist. Like you are the most sciencey scientist that I know, pretty much. You always talk from the data. You always come at everything from that perspective, which is good and is important, But you've talked a lot about, again, going into the gut microbiome and all of that. How do you look at that? How do you figure that out? Like, what has been your process to get us to a better diet for tree kangaroos?
All right, we'll be back after this quick break.
Please join me for the Nature Disturbed podcast, a podcast about the good, the offensive, and the confusing parts of the animal kingdom, from the sewers of Florida searching for alligators. Oh no, did I forget to put the bins out? To the surface of Mars, investigating the possibility of life beyond Earth. Sorry, I had some bubbles lodged in my throat. I said, to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, all while interviewing scientists about their research along the way. Do you like comedy, whimsical storytelling, and learning about the natural world? If not, then you'll hate the Nature Disturbed podcast.
Well, from my mind, it's a little, it can be frustrating being a scientist in a zoo because there is the aspect of it that, like oftentimes the things that the information that you need to answer the questions doesn't necessarily right away have direct applicability to like improving care. And so sometimes it can be quite frustrating because you have to answer a bunch of questions on the way to getting the big answer because people just want to know, you know, what and how much should I be feeding my tree kangaroo, you know? But before we get there, we have to answer a bunch of questions. And we're still actually in the process of that. Like there will be another iteration, I'm sure, as we find out more about like the like mineral content from wild browses that I mentioned at the workshop was something that we're still looking to like add to our inventory. Like Ellen wasn't able to get that analysis done on the original study that she put out in 2020 that she's now we're going to be adding to that. But it's like, it's really sort of, I have always tried to keep in mind because I am a zoo scientist, like, and I'm asking zoos to participate in the research that because it doesn't, it's not impactful to only look at one or two animals. We want to look at as many in the population as we can. I want my results to, like, I want it to be easily understandable how what they're doing and participating applies to the care, will apply to the care of the animals. I look for that connection as much as I possibly can. And then I try to communicate that to everybody as much as possible. And then make sure they know how specifically they contributed, and it can be a hard jump in science. Like sometimes it's not very clear, you know what I mean? Like it's indirect and it takes a lot of explanation. So I have made it a distinct focus of my career and the way I communicate to try to keep that very clear and try to be the questions I'm asking and the way I'm going about trying to collect the data to answer them is in a way that is as direct as possible for everyone, which it isn't always the case. I mean, there is definitely a place for like basic biology questions like that we just don't know about, but there might not be immediate impact on how we care for animals from some of that information. So I lean more towards the stuff that is going to, the stuff that's really like low-hanging fruit. That's like, if we find this out, we can then adjust the diet in these ways. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So let's, because I just want to, one of the things that I was fascinated by and that I talked about in my tree kangaroo workshop recap episode is that, there are roughly 40 tree kangaroos in the North American population. And that's not a lot.
No.
And but they're at a bunch of different facilities. 16, 18, something like that, I think.
Yeah, 18, 19 now. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so that is, while it's not a lot of animals, it's a lot of people to require data from.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're talking, say, 18 facilities, at least 2 keepers at each that are going to need to be involved, probably some relief keepers. You're probably talking more keepers than animals to get the data that you need to take care of those 40 animals.
Well, and then there's all of the upper management that you have to get like research proposal requests through. Yeah.
So it ends up being more than one person per animal to get this information to better their lives. And I want to point that out. I want people to understand that like that is the depth that you're going to and the amount of work that is being done. It's literally more than one human per tree kangaroo at this point. Now, obviously, the research will help future tree roos and all of that stuff. But like in the moment and with data collection and everything, that's how that works. And it's not just the data from these zoos. You mentioned this a little bit, but for my listeners who sadly weren't at the workshop, talk about how you're getting and when I say you, I know it's not just you doing this work. You're very good at giving credit where credit is due, and I appreciate that. But how you and Ellen and all of these people are getting information about like what tree kangaroos are eating in the wild and how you get all that info and then how you synthesize it to what we're doing here.
Yeah. So, well, for all of that work, and it will come as no surprise to you, is only possible because of the Tree Kangaroo Conservation Program and the wonderful, wonderful people that work for the TKCP. So that was one of the aspects when I first started. One of the first people I met associated with the tree kangaroos in general was Dr. Lisa Daybag. And so,
what a great start.
I know. It was crazy lucky. And she has been absolutely wonderful to work with and in collaborating. And so it's not always like the easiest thing. I mean, it's a very remote place and they're on a complete different part of the, like different side of the clock, right? So communication could be extremely difficult, but communicating with people from the TKCP and like conveying, okay, so I need these samples. So for the microbiome samples, for instance, that we were able to get from animals in the wild when they were last in the field and doing collaring was incredible because like she put me in touch with the correct individual from the TKCP. And this person was like coordinating the entire trip out with the guides and like everyone that was going in the field from Woodland Park Zoo and the other facilities that were sending like people over. And basically I had like one little protocol like piece that had to slide into everything else that they were doing when they had a tree kangaroo in hand, you know, and there were like so many ways in which this could possibly like go wrong or be forgotten, but it was like perfect. Like they're so great. They were like, okay, what do you need? And we shipped them, you know, the stuff to collect in a box and everything and gave them the information. And like they made sure it got done. You know what I mean? And it was great. And we got the samples back and had that analysis done. And I can't speak for when Ellen was collecting the actual plant material from the wild, like I wasn't involved at that time. Unfortunately, I wish I could go back in time and make this wonderful decision earlier, but I can't speak for that, but I know it was also very, very difficult and they had to involve additional people in order to like basically just get the protocols that they needed in place to do that. And, but the TKCP and all of the Papua New Guineans that work there and help them are like simply fantastic and some of the most capable people I've ever interacted with in my life. Just, yeah. So that's the only reason it's been possible. And I really want to credit them with that. And I'm really looking forward to, as part of SAFE, because I'm also the research working group lead for the SAFE. And I'm really looking forward to working with them more in the future and like figuring out more collaborations that we can have, because I think it's just, we've only tapped into it like a really, really tiny amount, but there's like so much that's possible there because of how fantastic like every human being associated with tree kangaroos really seems to be. So.
Yeah, it's been a trend since I got to know y'all. It's been very cool. And yeah, so what you're talking about is you were getting gut microbiome samples and then able to study them.
Yeah.
And at the same time, or before that, I guess, because you weren't involved yet, but there were actual samples of leaves taken, like of the browse that they eat out in the wild,
yeah.
right? And then they were dried out, which is not easy to do in PNG.
Right.
And then shipped here.
Yeah.
And then analyzed.
Yes.
So we literally got to the point, and boy, am I using the biggest royal we. I had nothing to do with this, but we got to the point where we understand what the tree kangaroos are getting from the browse they eat in the wild, right? Mm-hmm. And we understand how it impacts their gut microbiome because you were looking at all of that. And then it became your job to figure out how to make that happen here when Cleveland is weirdly not in Papua New Guinea. And there are different plants and, you know, there are things like leaf eater biscuits and we sometimes feed animals things like root vegetables and fruit, which you now know isn't great. We're going to talk about that, right? Which is why I bring it up.
Yeah.
So how do you do that analysis and how does it go from getting all of this amazing stuff from PNG and turning it into an SSP rec for diet for tree kangaroos?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's certainly, I'm going to grossly oversimplify, I think.
Thank you.
Well, it's not just for you. It's also because, like I said, I am not a nutritionist. So this is pretty much the level at which I understand it. But so there's a couple of like key pieces of information you need when you're trying to build a diet so you have an animal in a zoo. How do you feed it, right? One key piece of information that is very helpful to know is what is the macronutrient balance they are getting from the food they eat in the wild? What are they evolved to be able to process, right? And so that's what came from the TKCP and them like basically watching wild tree kangaroos and seeing what they ate and then collecting that material. And then they analyzed it for macronutrient content. So they wanted to know like how much protein, how much carbs, how much fat, how much fiber, like what is in the stuff that they're eating in the wild. So that is what that 2020 study I mentioned from Dr. Dernfeld really like shed a lot of light on. And she did at that time also a comparison to what zoos were feeding at the time, because we just didn't know. Zoos like didn't know, you know what I mean? And so she highlighted differences there that we wanted to correct with the diet recommendations. But there's another component to creating a diet other than just knowing, okay, so these macronutrients are in basically these proportions in it. You have to know how much to feed. And that is often sort of overlooked, or in zoos, it's done based on like body size of the animal. Like you have a basic way you can kind of calculate that. And so that's the study that I worked on with Dr. Noah Dunham, which was energy expenditure. So basically in a day, how much energy does a tree kangaroo expend, so that how many calories does it need to take in order to replace that energy, which means that they would stay at a constant weight. So like if you're burning a lot of energy and not eating a lot, you lose weight, right? If you are eating a lot and not burning a lot of energy, you're going to gain weight. So we wanted to be able to balance that across, but you can't balance it if you don't know how much energy they're burning, right? So that's that study that we looked at. And we found out that for their body size, tree kangaroos are only burning about 66% of what we would expect a macropod to do.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. They are just like, they're just marsupial versions of sloths. Like, I mean, marsupials already burn less energy for their body size than like non-marsupial animals, but tree kangaroos are even an outlier for them, which is crazy. And so basically they just were this perfect recipe for overfeeding in zoos, because we were using all of the information that we had and just didn't know. And so we put together that amount of energy expenditure, and then we built diets using the components that they like, the macronutrient breakdown and the stuff that has those macronutrients in it, which by and large for them is mostly leafy material. So it's like leaves from trees, has really high fiber, and it has low in these other categories like starches and like sugars, carbohydrates, things like that, should be pretty low in their diets. And like leafy material is a really good way to do that. So and like I said, we're going to add to it as we learn more about like mineral content and vitamins and things like that from the wild food that they're eating, to better balance that for them as well. But right now, that is what led directly into the diet recommendations that you saw at the workshop. Right,
which is so cool. And it's, again, I love using tree kangaroos for this example, not just because I love tree kangaroos, I do, but because again, it's such a small population, not well known in the world. But still, all of this work is being done for them. One of my favorite things that I have is Roger Williams Park Zoo sent me the body condition score chart, the green one for tree kangaroos. And I have it as a poster in one of my places. And it makes me so happy because did you know that there still isn't an official one for red pandas?
Really?
Yeah, they're working on it. 2 years ago at AAZV, they had a proposed one, but it's still going through the stuff. But it's insane to me that tree kangaroos had one before red pandas, right? Just based on popularity and based on numbers, right? 40 in the population versus 280 or so in the population. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Yeah. So that's just such a cool story and cool way of looking at things. But then that does bring it back to the other thing, which is you mentioned reproduction, is actually your specialty. And so what impact have you seen on the reproduction of tree kangaroos since these diets have been implemented?
So everything with tree kangaroos is pretty slow, and it takes them a really long time to, raise up a joey entirely and like breed back again. So we haven't had the new diet recommendations out for that long, but I have noticed that even just so as part of like being a reproductive endocrinologist, and I help the population by analyzing for the different institutions that want to participate. Here at Cleveland, we're sort of the hub for like running the reproductive hormones on female tree kangaroos. So what I have noticed is when I first started, I was asking for animals that like they were having trouble breeding, right? And I was like, so send me your samples and I'll see if I can't help you and all of that. What I've noticed is that there's many fewer of those.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
It really is. And now mostly what we're analyzing in the lab and sending out to people is young females that are just starting to reproductively cycle. And so we're trying to give the institutions an idea of the timing of them as they come into adulthood and they start being able to breed. We're trying to tell them, okay, this would be a good time window to breed them or to breed her with your male at the time. So, but that's not an issue. That's like a very normal thing that we just sort of, we're doing with healthy animals to try to encourage breeding as quickly as we can to keep the population healthy. But it's not so much related to like trying to address a particular issue. And there has just been far fewer animals. And the ones that we are trying to deal with breeding issues of, I have noticed a distinct, like they have leaned very much into this, okay, this is related to body condition. Like this is our diet, help us transition. Like, you know what I mean? So, people really have been very open to, I want to do the right thing. I want to support the population. And, that has been a change from initially I was very worried about saying like, hey, your tree kangaroo is not breeding, and that could possibly be because your female is overweight. You know what I mean? Like that's a hard thing to talk to an institution about, but it hasn't been difficult, and the numbers gone. Even just since I've been doing this, the last couple of years since the diet rec's been out, I have seen like those numbers go way down.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool. And of course, it also, anecdotal evidence, but there's a baby here.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's really exciting.
So
we've talked about a lot of cool sciencey stuff, but I will get mobbed by my audience if we don't talk about the animals a little bit. So there are 3 tree kangaroos here right now, and I would love you to tell me all about them.
Oh, so I'm going to start with Chiari because he is our like tough as nails old man. So Chiari is 19 years old, and I believe he's the oldest male in the population right now. He's also one of the most valuable males in the population right now because, as you sort of hinted at, we have not had baby tree kangaroos here in the last, I think, 25 years. So in the whole time that we've had Chiari, we've been trying to breed him, and we have been unsuccessful. So he's not been able to contribute to the population until very, very recently. And we are so, so, so excited for that. So we got in our female Modi from Gainesville, Santa Fe College Teaching Zoo. Mm-hmm. And she is so we got her, she was just about 3 years old when we got her little, so she's a very spry girl.
And she was hopping all around today. It was cool to see that.
Yeah. We were worried about, honestly, his ability to catch her.
Sure. Yeah. Real.
Because he's not a spring chicken, and she is very limber. So, but turns out they took to each other quite well. And we were able to, like, very shortly after getting her, we were able to get them together during one of her receptive windows, and they bred. And first time was the charm in this case, because that's what led to Renbo, our little Joey that was born September 30th of last year. So just over a year old now. But the first tree kangaroo baby in here, like I said, in over 25 years. And I'm just like ecstatic for this, for not only for the population, but like for our team here, because they are absolutely wonderful and so hardworking and focused on this species and have wanted, like they just needed the positive reinforcement of seeing a Joey that like they directly contributed to creating, and it's just fantastic.
That's awesome. And males are good to go, right? Basically until the end, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So
as long as they can physically still catch some females
sure,
and breed, yeah.
Sure. No, that makes sense. But that's really cool because, like you said, one of the hard things with tree kangaroos is Rembo's over a year old, and Rembo has not left mama's side yet,
Yeah.
and won't for probably another year, I'm guessing.
So at least 18 months they'll be
Right.
together. So a lot of it will be dependent upon like their relationship. Like we're not going to rush mom to, you know, part with him, but sometimes they sort of encourage that. So we're just going to kind of see, and Bodhi's first. So I don't know how they're going to be like,
Right.
yeah.
It was interesting watching him today because, I mean, he just follows her.
Yeah, he's very,
like
yeah.
he's not independent.
Yeah.
We'll just put it that
Yeah.
way. It's very cute to watch, but also the flip of that is there were a couple of times when she seemed to be like, step back.
I think he's more worried about it than she is.
Yeah, I did. But I remember, if I remember correctly, at the workshop, I forget who it was. Somebody, one of the amazing people there, was talking about the fact that it seems like males stay with mom longer than females. And so that's why I was thinking it might even be as long as 2 years.
Yeah, I think that might have been Lisa, or at least at one point, Lisa Dabeck was talking about in the wild, they noticed that it seems to be that the like male Joeys stick with mom longer, but it was so funny for him. And we don't have anything really here to compare it to because he's been our only Joey, but he was so upset when he could not fit in that pouch anymore. He kept trying. And so he would just squish himself underneath her when she was sitting. When he didn't fit anymore, he just needed to be like in that space. And like her arms would just be like over top of him because he was enormous. And it was the cutest thing ever. He was like so resentful he couldn't get in there anymore.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what I'm hearing is it's probably going to be 2 years.
Oh God.
But then there's at least the possibility based on how you know, lifespan and all of that stuff and how things are going. But there is the possibility of getting more of those genetics out there, because you never want to look at individuals from just that perspective. Like that sounds gross.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you are involved in population management, when you are a scientist, when you are all of the things that are not a drummer who likes tree kangaroos, you do have to think that way, you know? And so, yeah, that's really cool to know that there's at least hope and possibility of getting some more of those valuable genetics out there.
Yeah, that is our goal. I mean, Chiari, like, fingers crossed, seems to be like doing well and still kicking around. Like I said, so much of that is due to the amazing care he gets here. And I know the keepers just adore him and would do anything for him. And I know that individual, like, especially if there's been a couple males in the population that have reached like 23, 24, something along those lines. And so I'm hoping we can get at least, at least another Joey out of Chiari would be great. Not to be, like you said, like just for that, but also he's very cute. So
he's very cute.
He made a cute Joey with Modi. So
yeah, no, I like Rembo a lot. Rembo's really cute. And Rembo has a white patch like on the forehead.
On his forehead, yeah.
And you definitely you were telling me that you thought it was going to fade, because I've seen lots of, you have been very kind and have sent me lots of photos and videos of Rembo, which I appreciate. And it has not faded.
No.
And I mean, still young, but definitely getting to the point where like,
it might be there.
I don't think it's going to go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really exciting.
It's very characteristic. I mean, their face patterns are like a good way to tell them apart. And
right. Yeah.
It's just uncommon to see a separated white patch in the red. And he definitely has. I was so worried it was going to melt into the rest of the white on his face, but it didn't. And hopefully it'll stay there.
That would be so cool. He's so cute. Yeah, they're so good. Cool. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with your job, or anything that you're doing here at CMPZ, or anything tree kangaroo wise, just literally anything?
I would love to, I was thinking about this morning. I would love to answer the question, like, why tree kangaroo?
Okay. All right.
I get asked this, not by you,
No,
because I
that's
think you're like a no duh with tree kangaroos, but I get asked this a lot.
No, that's fair. I do too. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think to ask it because
you're like, no duh.
Yeah, 100%. But please, why tree kangaroos?
Well, so it could be like, there are a ton of reasons that you would believe me if I said, because there are like, no, it's no doubt, right? Look at them. They are some of the most adorable animals that like quite possibly I've ever seen. They're just kind of like, you know, just a little bit clumsy, which adds to it. And just like basically living stuffed animals. They are adorable. But also like from a like biological standpoint, they're fascinating, right? So there's that perspective that could be the case. Like reproductively, they're just really super cool and unique and all of that. So there's those reasons. It could be because the tree kangaroo conservation program is absolutely amazing. And it's like one of the most like heart touching and just like inspiring sort of programs that like I have ever heard of. And I've heard of a lot of them. And to be part of it is absolutely incredible. And to be able to work with those people, like, you know, a career highlight. So it could be that, but really for me, and I know that you've like heard this before, but I sort of like blundered into tree kangaroos just doing my job here at the zoo, like I always did, where we had a female that wasn't breeding. And it's my job here at the zoo to help figure out why that might be. So I started doing that for our female tree kangaroo here, Saucy, at the time. And from the moment I reached out to the members of the SSP and started talking with tree kangaroo people, I have been just like in awe of how welcoming and collaborative and just like wonderful the people are that work with tree kangaroos. And we talked about this earlier, but like really that's been the reason that I have stayed with this. Like I couldn't say goodbye to this SSP and the SAFE, and if I tried to, if I wanted to, because like it's just the best group of people I've ever met. And like we keep adding to it, and I keep thinking like there's got to be one oddball here that isn't incredible as a person, and it's never the case. Every new person, like you came in just a couple of years ago. I mean, you've always been a tree kangaroo person, but like, as far as me knowing you and, you know, also incredible as a person. And I'm really thankful for this opportunity to talk to everybody about tree kangaroos. And I'm so glad you asked me and found any of this interesting at all when I was sort of blabbing to you about the gut microbiome and tree kangaroos at AZA.
Kindred spirits. Like I said, seriously, like I was just like, oh my God, yes. Like I want to help tree kangaroos, but it is the same thing. I talked to you and was so impressed by you as a human and as a scientist that it made me want to join the group. And then I, especially at that workshop, like Jade's been great and Corey's been, everyone I've worked with has been great. But then you go to that workshop and just everyone is amazing.
Yeah.
And
in totally different, unique ways.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We're all a bunch of weirdos, you know? And like, the fact that a few of us ended our night, the last night of the workshop, at a barcade, beating the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game, and then almost beating X-Men. We made it all the way to Magneto when we ran out of quarters, and no one wanted to get another $10 worth.
Oh my God!
And we were like belting Backstreet Boys in harmony, and it was just like, it's not even just when it comes to the animals, but even outside of it, like all of your little weirdnesses and quirks and stuff are just completely accepted, you know? And it's a special group, and it makes it hard, like you said, to not want to do the thing. And then tree kangaroos are great, but special people matter.
Yeah. Well, and I know we say it a lot, but I can't express how true it is. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, I'm a scientist, so like, I never get along better with people than I do with animals.
Right.
I mean, a zoo scientist, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I just love them all. And it feels very like, I feel so accepted. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing that I would be afraid to talk to them about. You know what I mean? Right. And it's a great environment.
Yeah, very cool. And then obviously, I assume I know what your conservation organization you want to give a shout out to is.
Oh,
but
have I not done it enough already? Yeah, that's definitely going to be the Tree Kangaroo Conservation Program. Of course.
Yes. And then
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
Poop story. Okay. So I don't know if you are aware, but being an endocrinologist at a zoo means that a lot of my life revolves around poop because that's where we get the majority of our hormones from. So I have dealt with poop for now going on 2 decades. Wow, longer. Anyway, as a regular part of my working life, but one of the grossest situations that ever had happened to me was, okay, so for my PhD dissertation work, I was it was doing it on cheetahs, right? And I was working with a bunch of institutions and they were sending me their cheetah samples. So I don't know if you know this about poop, but when an animal eats mostly like tree kangaroos, like their poop's actually pretty pleasant because it's mostly like leafy material, fibrous, whatever. It doesn't even smell that strongly or bad or anything. But things that eat mostly meat have really nasty poop. It smells terrible and it is often really gross consistency and it's just gross in all ways, shapes, and forms. And I got a shipment one time from a zoo that shall remain unnamed that they sent it to me in a cooler. So it was a huge, like one of those big, like camping coolers that you think about with full of samples, like hundreds of samples of cheetah poop, no ice packs. And it got stuck in shipping.
Oh no.
Right. And it was in a plastic cooler. So it just turned into like an oven in there.
Ooh.
And so what I got in, and so of course, when that shipment came in, I wasn't there at the moment it was received. And so what our habit is to put them into the freezer. You know what I mean? So it'd be these big walk-in freezers. So it was put into a freezer, right? So by the time I got there and I opened this cooler, it had literally become poop soup and then refrozen into one big, huge cooler-shaped poop ice block. And so in order for me to get my samples out of there, because it had just like liquefied, to even see if I could get anything salvageable of that, I had to like let it thaw and then like chip out individual samples. And there was just like frozen poop and like droplets going everywhere. And I was like covered and it smelled awful. And it was like so dark black. Like it was like the darkest poop you've ever seen. Like, and yeah, I remember people walking into the room I was doing it in and like other people that were working there and like leaving and being like, no. And I was like, yeah, this is a low point. This is a career low point for me.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to do this.
No problem. This was awesome.
Yay.
See, that's what I mean. That right there is why Diana is one of my favorite humans ever. And it is such a joy to work with her on tree kangaroo-y things. And we have a project that we are working on right now that I'm not going to talk about yet, but I will share with y'all once it is the appropriate time. But it's just fun to have cool people like that in my life, especially when we're all focused on trying to save cool animals like tree kangaroos. All right. So, that's it. We'll be back on Friday with a new Zoo News episode. But before I go, I do want to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Shank, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin Meow. And to remind y'all that, it is getting into the holiday season. The holiday special is coming up, but don't forget that if you have the opportunity to do something gifts wise that can help out conservation or animals in general, or zoos or aquariums, go ahead and do that. Membership's great. Great gifts, right? And donations in someone's name, great gift. And Peppermint Narwhal and Animals Anonymous and all of these awesome places that give to conservation are all just wonderful things to consider. So keep that in mind. And also don't forget the most important thing. The word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari, or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.